I think too, during COVID, I had friends that developed like unmanageable anxiety
Yep.
that they'd never
Yep.
experienced before.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And go ahead.
That's the whole that would be it. It's like those genes were always there, but you never had the same stress that you were living with in COVID to see it show up. That's
Mm.
exactly a great example.
So then how can, like, what are some of the things? So I'll back up. One thing that has always struck me when it comes to mental health or even physical health, like I talk about this sometimes just with friends and even on the show, but like I think there's genetics that obviously play a role in everything. And
Yep.
then I think there's also habits passed down from generation to generation, like eating habits, stuff like that. Like I grew up in the 80s and the 90s, and we ate processed food
Yep. Yep.
like crazy. And so I had to like retrain myself as I got in my teens and adults to like eat real food and better
Yep.
food. And
Yep.
so I think habitually I could have stayed on that path and been
Yep.
overweight and unhealthy and all that stuff. So, but there's also the genetic component to that. So I think it's the same
Correct.
with mental health, but we talked a little bit, like you take these approaches to anxiety, and instead of realizing someone turned these genes on during COVID,
Yep.
it's like, here's a Klonopin, here's a Xanax, here's an SSRI, which I know I actually
Yep.
wanted to talk a little bit about with you. And
Yep.
it isn't a looking at what the root cause is. It isn't
Right.
looking at the genetic makeup as to what's doing this, nor is it giving you a holistic approach. And I'm not saying like medication's bad. Medication helps a
Right.
lot of people,
Right.
but I think there's other considerations like genetics that just aren't there to help people get a holistic approach.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And to your point, I always give a disclaimer. You'll never hear me say, don't ever take a pharmaceutical. You'll never hear me say, don't ever have surgery. Both of those things save lives. But the
Mm-hmm.
problem is that we abuse them rather than use them. And for that to be our starting point for everything doesn't make sense,
No.
right? And then we do have the physiological part, the genetic part, and we do have the lifestyle part, right? And so often generationally, people are like, well, my mom died at this age, my dad died at this age, I might as well live it up because I'm dying at the same age. It's like, because you have the same habits,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's not strictly genetics. It's because you have the same habits and it may be even the same way of thinking, right?
That's
So if
totally
you're a
true.
negative thinker, you're going to be right all the time. Yep, it is the doom and gloom. You'll be right all the time, but it's all of it together. That's actually my latest book that's will be coming out soon, is about all of those pieces together. And it's we have to look at the whole picture. We're all unique. I use the number 8 billion people in the world, 8 billion different sets of DNA, also 8 billion different personalities.
Yeah.
And the whole like selfie part of social media started with look at me. Why don't we really look at you?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of looking at the other guy who you're trying to make yourself out to be, let's really look at you and show up. And that's beautiful. We all should be different.
I agree. I actually think people would do better, and we talked about this already too, but like who you are and embrace the weird or embrace the different.
Yeah.
I say I'm unapologetically myself because I got some weird in me. I've got some things, like I have funny habits. Like some of them got revealed on, social media or in reality TV. Like I make my own toothpaste and my own
Yeah.
soaps and a lot of my own condiments because, I'm weird and I want to know what's going in and on
In
my
it.
body. And it's like,
Yeah. That's
but
not
it's like,
weird.
yeah, it's like weird to some people we all, but you got to embrace it. Like, why would I be embarrassed to share something like I make my own toothpaste because I've been doing it for like 12 years at this point.
That's cool.
It's like,
That's really
yeah,
cool. Yeah.
it's weird, but I think a lot of people can't embrace those weird parts of them,
Right. Right.
and they kind of are
It,
shameful about them.
yeah. It's the courage thing again.
Mm,
You
yeah.
know? Yeah, it takes courage to say, I want to know what's going into my body. That shouldn't be that odd of a
Oh,
thought, you
so
know?
weird though. People
Yeah,
get
it is. It's like,
very upset about it.
yeah, yeah, people get crazy, but that's uniquely you, right? And it should be. It should be.
Yeah. So when you so you launched your company, why am I blank? It's because it changed the name on me. It's Wired Biohealth, right?
Yeah,
Wired
yeah,
Biohealth. Okay,
yeah.
sorry about that.
No, that's
Wired
okay.
Biohealth. You launched that to, and I know you have several different packages that you offer for
Mhm.
readings. Why don't you tell us a little bit about when you decided to launch the company, what your mission is, and how you're helping people understand their genetics better to improve their wellness?
Sure. So the first, after it kind of gave the backstory of getting involved and do the R&D and all that kind of stuff, the first space that we were in was actually with Wired for Addiction, and it was in the criminal
Hmm.
justice space. Because you see people, just because you're going to jail doesn't mean now you're going to come out and be a different person.
Right.
You know, physiologically, nothing has changed within you. And that's why we see people, repeat offenders, happening constantly. And it was like, this doesn't make sense. Regardless of the political aisle you sit on, it doesn't make sense for society, right? Because it's
Hmm.
costing everyone. Plus, that individual, nobody wants to be living that way, right? Even if they're like, yes, I do. No, no, you don't. Right. Okay. So that's where we started. And that was really met very well. And actually, judges loved getting this information about someone because it gave them a different way to have a sense. There should be sentencing. You've done something wrong. Society doesn't
Right.
work that way. There are judges of society, right? It doesn't work that way. So here's your penalty. I want you to do this also because now the judge has objective data of here's what's going on with this individual. Why don't we take care of that part too while they're doing their other part?
Hmm.
And then that grew into people of like, okay, so a big part of that was with different types of addictions, be it alcohol, drugs, sex, food, gambling, all of them, what we call process addictions, all of it, because it's all from the same reasons. And then figuring out once someone gets to the point of addiction where you have to bring something from the outside in to change your resting state, we've
Mm.
got something wrong going on foundationally, right? Hence the
Right.
dual diagnosis. But what is that something? And moreover, to this point, Nick, everybody's got something. Nobody's got perfect, like, look at me, I can hang this one up on the refrigerator. Take a look. It doesn't work out. Nobody's got that, right? But it's where are your issues and what do we need to do about them? We need to identify what's going on with you, uniquely you, and then, okay, what's our plan to change
Yeah.
that? So with addiction, then it was okay, there was nothing there, it being a biopsychosocial disease. We were good with the psychosocial. We were doing nothing for the bio piece other than saying, here's your MAT, here's your medically assisted treatment, and everybody getting the same thing. And we're still not getting the results. The recovery results are not good because we weren't looking at the individual for their
Right.
unique
It's like you
physiology.
go 28 days to rehab and your habit's broken and you're fine now. It's like, what?
Yeah. And then you're back again, right?
Yeah.
Because no one ever looked at what was the foundational in your physiology, creating those thoughts, what we call aberrant behavior. Aberrant behavior is something like risk taking, impulse control, anxiety, depression, addiction. You're going to wind up back there.
Mm.
Right. So that was great. And then people came to us and said, I'm not quite at that place, but I do feel like there's a lot of anxiety going on. There's ADD, there's ADHD, there's depression going on. Like, okay, so then we created a more extensive, still looking at those neuropsychs, but adding more parts to what make our body work most efficiently or work
Mm.
poorly. So that was kind of how everything got to where we are today.
Thank you for listening to this clip from the full episode of Eyes Wide Open. Please like and subscribe for daily clips and new episodes that drop every Tuesday. I appreciate you.